Into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win it! They win it!
Where nothing is held back.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
Where nothing is censored.
He did what?
Where nothing is off limits.
She is gone!
Where anything goes. This is Snowman Unfiltered.
Holy Toledo, what a way to finish!
And here's your host, Brian Snow.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's the Labor Day edition of Snowman Unfiltered, and it's coming to you on a Friday because of Labor Day and because something happened, which I will explain in the next episode. But this is this episode, and I have a very dear friend of mine by the name of Josh Lopez. We're going to talk some Chicago media, a little bit of wrestling, and some things that really get on a man's nerves. Take a listen, won't you? Okay, folks. I told you I had a very dear friend of mine. I call him more than a friend. I call him a brother. He pointed out something to me that I was blind to 3 years ago, which led to our friendship stopping, but it also led to a reunion after I really looked at everything. We'll talk about that and a few more. And this is my wrestling expert, and he's from my hometown of Chicago. I want y'all to welcome Josh Lopez. What's going on, brother?
Excuse me, bitch.
First and foremost, tell everybody where they can find you in the internet world.
First off, let's start off with Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at the Hoops Podcast. The Hoops Podcast is where I talk about pro wrestling, sports, waterfall, and bunch of stuff on Apple Podcasts and all your favorite podcasting platforms. Also, you can check out all my transcriptions I do from pro wrestling shows. It's ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com.
All right. Now that we've done a proper introduction, let's dive in. And this is Snowman Unfiltered. You may hear parts of this on the morning show. You may not. Depends. But let's dive in. 3 years ago, you pointed out something to me, and I want to start there because I want to teach everybody, including the men, how a friendship can stop and how it can be resurrected. You pointed out the failure of Colin Kaepernick to me, and me being a 49er fan, I was just so blind to his failure until 2017, which led to us stopping talking for a year. How did you see it before, not just me, but the national media? How did you see it coming?
Well, when it comes to any athlete, unless it's warranted, I'm not going to cast aspersions on somebody, even if they're a young player. So I never had a personal vendetta against Colin Kaepernick,
right,
even during the whole kneeling situation. I
right.
never had an issue with it personally. My assessment, and take this from what's worth, I never played in professional football, so I'm not going to insult people's intelligence and say that my opinion is above other people or anything like that. I always go off of what I see on television, not what propaganda wants me to think about certain players. So, every year we go through this cycle where, oh my God, the Packers are going to be the most scariest team in the NFL. My response to that is, you've been telling me that for a decade. I was in high school the last time the Packers won a Super Bowl. And also, let's bring it back to Kaepernick. When he had his run for 2 years, and he lost the Super Bowl to the Ravens and all that was going on, and then 2 years after the fact, I was looking what I was just assessing what I was looking on tape. There's an expression, and football players use this all the time. Tape doesn't lie.
Yeah.
You can make any excuse you want. Injuries do play a factor to certain situations. There was a snowy game in 2016 in a Soldier Field that I remember.
Yeah.
That kind of brought these full circles to where I thought things were going with Colin Kaepernick. And it was one of the most ugliest football games I've ever seen in my entire life. So I'll add the Bears to the list, so I'm not being
Awful.
Just a brutal Bob Evans type of game. Yeah, so, again, I never had anything personal against Colin Kaepernick, but I'm not going to let something I see on tape disillusionize my viewpoint.
And that is so true. And I did that. I didn't do what came natural to me, and that was look at the tape. He peaked in college, in my opinion, talking about Kaepernick. And, of course, he had a great game against the Packers in the playoffs. In fact, 2 great games against the Packers in the playoffs. But then, even as the numbers built, his ability started to plummet. And it plummeted fast. Do injuries play a part in that? Yes, but he never progressed. He never got better. Now, part of that can be blamed on Jim Harbaugh and his system running Kaepernick into the ground. You can believe that if you want to, but the tape don't lie. He regressed. And I mean, he regressed badly right after he was given the reins as the starting quarterback of the 49ers. And it took me a year to see it. You know, I stopped talking. I got to tell the story. I stopped talking to Josh after you brought it to my attention, and I said as such on the morning show. But then I called and apologized because I looked at the tape for hours and hours and hours, and I saw the regression happen with Kaepernick. Kneeling stance aside, understood why he was doing it. But the first thing I did was call you and tell you, look, I was dead wrong about Colin Kaepernick, and I sincerely apologize for that. And I owe you, my friend, a ton of thanks for bringing that to my attention.
That's all right. I appreciate it. For me, I'm just the type of person that I'm not going to sugarcoat how I feel about things, and maybe that can throw some people off, but I think anybody that knows me personally is that I am a really nice guy, and one thing you always get from me is honesty. And I'm not going to say things just to say things.
Right.
And only contention I will ever have with anybody is that they start questioning my ethics or how I go about things, because nobody knows me better than myself. So it's hard for me to deal with people putting words in my mouth or how I go about things. The whole narrative about possession being reality is only reality to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what other people think about you.
And it's really not what other people think about you. And there's a point I want to hit with that a little later. But I have a theory about why Kaepernick is out of the league, and you and I share this theory. In my first episode of Snowman Unfiltered, Cole Johnson was with me, and we talked about the deal that Jay-Z struck with the NFL and how certain people are all butthurt because Jay-Z secured the bag and Colin Kaepernick still doesn't have a job. Well, wait a minute. Didn't Colin Kaepernick, A, settle out of court and receive an amount of money from the NFL, and B, didn't he secure the bag with Nike? The reason that Kaepernick doesn't have a job is pretty simple. Colin Kaepernick can't play quarterback anymore. I don't care if he is healthy. The tape doesn't lie.
All right, let's put this in a football scenario for this season, right? The Colts, which I know you're a fan of, they have some issues going on right now because Andrew Luck has not practiced at all in training camp, and he still has a leg issue, right?
Right.
If you're looking at yourself in the mirror, are you going to tell me that the Colts, as talented as the roster is, and I always give credit where credit's due, it's a talented roster.
Yep.
Are you telling me that this team is a Super Bowl team with Colin Kaepernick as your quarterback?
No. Hell no. I'll say it right now, and I was a fan of Kaepernick for a while. Hell no. They're not a contender. They're just fine with the contingent that they have. especially when you have a quarterback that was plucked off the New England roster.
Correct. But here's my thing. I figured this out 3 years ago. And I'm the last person to even get to the whole politics thing because I don't care about either party. I think it's a bad reflection in our society that we allow a celebrity to be our president. I mean, we could talk about this when the cows go home, but
Right.
But for me personally, I'm just looking at the players for how they play on the field. I don't care what your views are. I don't care what race you are. I'm not racist. I don't think about that stuff. Just show me what you do on the field. That's what matters at the end of the day.
It really is, and that's the old school mentality that I am now back to thanks to you. I judge a player by what they do on their chosen field or court or ice of profession. If you're showing me something on the field, I'll say nice things. If you're not, I'm going to tell the truth and say you're playing shitty. Let's just be real with it. And this leads me to this, and I've talked about this in an earlier episode of Snowman Unfiltered. Folks, would you do me a favor, and I know you agree with this, to the real NBA fans, the real NBA geeks like myself, would you please stop hyping up LeBron James as one of the greatest players ever? Please? Because he's not.
He's not even the best player on his team right now.
He wasn't the best player on his team for the last 3 years. He just had to carry the load because no one else stepped up and helped him. That's it.
That's not a hot take. That's just grade A facts.
It's absolute facts. It's absolute facts. And I know the Butthurt Brigade, and Lord knows I've used that term a million times over, the Butthurt Brigade will look at all the numbers and the sabermetrics and say, oh, he did this, he's passed Jordan in this. No, he may have passed Jordan in numbers, but let's look at one number, a couple of numbers that count. If y'all want to go with the stats, I go with some raw stats, and it looks like this. Number one, LeBron James is entering his 17th season. On only one of those seasons did he play a full 82 games. Michael Jordan played the greatest of all time, in my opinion. Played 15 years. And except for the years where he retired and then came back, except for a total of 3 full seasons and the season that he got injured, 1986, he played every game that was scheduled, folks.
Where do we go where the eye test doesn't matter anymore? It seems like we feed off more perception than what our eyes are actually telling us.
Well, what my eyes tell me, and what they have been telling me since I got into basketball, and that covers 1980, I fell in love with Magic and the way he played in the Showtime Lakers. My mother was a Showtime Laker fan. Julius Erving in the 76ers. Julius Erving was my first favorite player. And as I said, love Magic, love Bird, and then Michael Jordan showed up in 1984 and took the whole thing over. And this is what people don't get about LeBron. Michael had something that LeBron never has had, except on only one occasion, and that was in Miami, and he'll never have again because he wants to be in charge. Structure.
Right. Right, I agree. And it's been said on college vacation, the dude just doesn't have a killer instinct. When in the last 16 years where you ever thought that you could rely on LeBron being clutch, besides one lucky block against the Warriors, and also, and we can't forget about how much the game has changed.
Yep.
Where if I give you a high five, I'm getting fouled out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the funny thing: like every time you want to analyze LeBron James, what do people go to? His height and weight measurement.
Yep.
Are we talking about basketball or are we talking about professional wrestling? I don't care what his size is. He can't shoot.
And he can't dribble without traveling. How about that?
Well, it doesn't matter how tall you are. Hell, you could be 8 feet tall. If you can't shoot, you can't shoot.
And
I don't care what you're built. This ain't no freaking bodybuilder competition. This is professional basketball.
And he's never been able to shoot since he got in the damn league. I don't care how many years in he is, and this will be his 17th year. He can't shoot. He's never been able to shoot. My buddy Victor put it best. LeBron has a chicken wing type jump shot, and it don't work.
Right. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, man. It's very ridiculous that all this hype is still being heaped upon LeBron like he's the greatest thing ever, like he's the greatest player ever, and he's not. And it leads to this. Let's go into this. Ryan Hollins appeared on First Take, and I didn't watch the entire show. Yeah, you know where I'm going. He appeared on First Take. Ryan Hollins appeared on First Take and said that Kobe Bryant nor Michael Jordan can fill LeBron James's shoes. Excuse the fuck out of me? What?
You know what LeBron fans are like? They're like high school girls who evaluate boys on whether they're hot or not.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's 6'7", gazillion wingspan. Who gives a shit?
You know what? I can tell you a player who was 6'7", had a great wingspan, and actually did something that made him one of the 50 greatest players of all time that LeBron will never do. Play defense. You know this fellow well. Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, the fact that Skip Bayless still thinks he's not a top 50 player is ridiculous in itself.
The fact that Ryan Hollins had the absolute unmitigated nerve, or as I love to say, the gall, the balls, the nuts, and the nerve, to say that Kobe nor Michael can fill LeBron's shoes. Excuse me? I think LeBron cannot fill Kobe nor Michael's shoes. Let's be real. Because he's shown time after time after time that when it's time for him to take over a game, he simply can't. And the thing that the time of the year that really shows he doesn't know how to take over a game, how about the NBA World Championship Series? He's lost 6 times. Michael's won 6 and hasn't lost once.
Right. It doesn't matter what your measurements are. One thing that can't be doubted or debated is effort. Period.
Thank you. Effort cannot be doubted. It can't be debated. Michael Jordan put forth the effort. Kobe Bryant put forth the effort. Let's go down the list. Shaquille O'Neal, Scottie Pippen, Julius Erving, Magic Johnson, Tim Duncan, David Robinson. Thank you for that. Mark Aguirre, good friend of mine, played with the Dallas Mavericks back in the day. Effort cannot be denied. And this little cupcake-ass era of the NBA that we are in right now, and yes, I'm saying it real, and I've said it real on the show, and people think I'm crazy. This little cupcake-ass era, except for a few players and a few teams, does not have the fucking effort, period. They just don't.
No, they don't.
The game has evolved. My ass, it's devolved.
It's not even halfway watchable. I mean, everybody was going Google Gaga over this NBA free agency period. Like, going back to effort and work ethic and competition. Oh, where's the competition? Let's be butt buddies with everybody instead of actually striving for something.
You know something? We talked about this 3 years ago when the Warriors and the Cavs were playing in the World Championship Series, and you, myself, Sean, and Andrew, and a few others all saw something coming when the Warriors went up 3-1, and then the rumbling started about Draymond Green possibly being suspended for Game 5. We took a look at that situation. We broke it down on the Sports Drive, and we all figured out that Draymond was going to be suspended over some bullshit. And what happened the next day? The suspension came out over some bullshit about LeBron whining to the league about Draymond Green, because Draymond Green was locking his ass up.
Right. Oh man, I don't get it, man. I just don't. The NBA is not even worth watching. It's not.
It really isn't.
Like, the fact that the NBA All-Star Game is finally coming back to Chicago, I think it's cool for the city. The United Center is like a 5-7 minute ride from my house.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm going to go. I'm not intrigued by the NBA. Oh, awesome. Kawhi and Paul George are with the Clippers because they're from LA and they don't want to compete. Awesome.
You said something. You brought up an event that I haven't watched in many a year, and that's the NBA All-Star Game. Hell, NBA All-Star Saturday night has gone down the toilet. The All-Star Game has gone down the toilet. And what really caused my separation from said events, one of the things, is the fact that it's no longer East versus West anymore.
Right. Man, let's move on from the NBA. I'm sorry. I'm getting a headache for the NBA.
Let's move to this. There is a media bias out there. There is a national media bias out there. And it involves your hometown and my hometown, the city of Chicago. Hell, there's a media bias within the city of Chicago. And you've spoken about this so many times. And I'm going to put it in the form of a question. And I'm going to give you the floor. Why do a lot of media personalities, save a few that you and I both know, in Chicago want to see the teams do bad? Why is that?
You know this as well as I do. A lot of people, and it's not even just sports related, I'm talking about real life. Chicago tries too hard to be New York.
Yeah.
It tries too hard. We pretend like we're these tough sports fans, but how can you be a tough sports fan when you allow people to speak for you? You're not even forming your own opinions, and
Right.
that's always been my biggest contention with the people in the city. Like, I am half Puerto Rican and half Italian. With being Italian, come from a traditional-based Italian family who are always glass half empty.
Mm-hmm.
They always go off of what the history in the past is, and it's not just like we're talking about life. And I just don't subscribe to that mindset. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying this just because I'm half Puerto Rican and I want to be rogue or anything like that. I look at life as, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I can't determine how long I'm going to be here. So I'm not going to allow you, because you don't want to evolve from your past tradition, to dictate how I'm going to go about my life or how I view things. And then you have people in the city who would rather thrive on negativity because it gets more ratings for their station,
Right.
than actually realizing the potential of the two teams. The fact that the Chicago Cubs, you would think the Cubs are in last place right now if you listen to sports talk radio.
Yeah.
And I get it. Expectations are expectations, and I'm not a Cubs fan, so we don't have to keep getting to that. You know I'm not a Cubs fan. But, again, we always feed off of perception now these days. It's not what is. So, okay, again, we're going to go with this narrative that the Packers going to be awesome. Aaron Rodgers will be out for as ooh, he's back because he missed the playoffs for the second year in a row. Oh my God, we gotta be scared.
Right.
What we're gonna do?
Be scared about what? Be scared about what?
A half-ass wide receiver core with the exception of Devontae Adams. Like, let's look at the Bears, for example. I was born in 1994.
Right.
And I know this is going to upset a lot of the players in the 2016 because they think they're the greatest era of Bears football since sliced bread, but they're not. So no matter what Alex Brown says on these jungles or anybody else or Owen Cruz, there's never been a sustainable Bears team that made the playoffs for 4 or 5 years in a row. There hasn't, at least in my lifetime. I saw the Bears get run through this dominant defense that supposedly this year's team is not better than that defense got ran through by Joseph Adai.
Yep. Joseph
I'm sorry if I take Alex Brown's comments with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got ran over in a rainy condition to a dome team whose leading rusher was Joseph Adai.
And he didn't even have 1,000 yards.
Yeah, but it's all Rex's fault, right?
And just like coming into this year, and this is where we're close, why is the hate real on Mitch Trubisky?
Because this city doesn't know how to evaluate quarterbacks if they hit them in the face. That's why. Again, we have this petty high school nature as sports fans where we look through things through petty glasses. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
I've never seen a player be drafted by an organization where it's the city would rather see him fail so they could tell the general manager that he was wrong for drafting Mitch Trubisky than actually seeing our first actual real developed quarterback in Chicago.
Right.
I don't get that mindset.
And they won't let, and the fans and the media won't let the organization develop him. They won't let him develop him.
You know, it's funny. I heard this the other day. I saw this on Twitter actually. That somebody said, "Oh, this is a make it or break it year for Mitch Trubisky." Wow, I didn't know a guy who was in the Pro Bowl last year is on the hot seat for quarterback.
Yep.
That amazes me.
And what also, so you know what's going to happen next? They're going to put Matt Nagy on the hot seat halfway through the season. The Bears could be 8-3 or 9-2. And I have already done my my preseason picks, and I picked them to win the division by 3 games. But it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. If they don't run the table and win all 16, guess what? Matt Nagy's on the hot seat. That's just how fickle these Chicago fans are.
You hit the nail right in the head. This city is not ready for Bears to be a sustainable franchise. They don't want it to be that way.
No. And here's something else that gets on my nerve. And you remember this happening. When the Cubs got to the World Series in 2016, there was a graphic that appeared on ESPN showcasing the championships between the city of Chicago and the city of Cleveland. There was a glaring omission that pissed me off. And the glaring omission with all the championships that they listed by the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the Bears, why did they leave off the White Sox world title in 2005?
Because it was an actual good baseball team that didn't rely on analytics.
They didn't rely on analytics. They went out and played the game the way it was supposed to be played. What's wrong with that? They played small ball. They didn't hit the home runs. They had the home run hitters. And what people don't understand, that 2005 White Sox team, and we can finish with this subject here, that 2005 White Sox team played small ball for the bulk of that season, but they still led the American League in home runs with 204. No one wants to acknowledge that.
No, they don't. How many times have you heard about, oh my God, how about these great pitching stats for the 80s and the early 2000s?
Right.
What the White Sox did in the playoffs with the 4 complete games will never happen again.
It never will happen again. Ever. Burley, Garland, Garcia, and Contreras. 2005 American League Championship Series. 4 consecutive complete games beginning with Mark Burley. And the bad part is what people don't recognize about that team, and especially about that series against the Angels, the bullpen was used for only 2/3 of an inning that entire series. That, of course, was game 1 when Contreras went 8 1/3 and Neil Kotz wound up finishing the game. And that was the only game the White Sox lost.
Right.
That was the only game the White Sox lost, and they still got 8 1/3 from Jose Contreras. And yet no kudos from the national media whatsoever. I saw a video on YouTube, and this will make you proud, that I saw a video series called Forgotten Champions. Yeah, guess what was number 4 on that list? The 2005 Chicago White Sox.
Wow, man.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Hey, so, let me say this. Like, this is how you could describe Chicago in its purest form. 1, the city doesn't want the Sox to be bigger than the Cubs.
True.
Second, they rather be content with the 85 Bears being the greatest team in all the city of Chicago. They don't want the Bears to be good.
Check.
And then finally, we just want to be stuck with saying, oh, Jerry Reinsdorf was a bad executive and the Bulls will never win another championship.
Which I hope,
that's what it is.
Which I hope the Bulls do very soon and prove this city wrong. And you know what's going to happen? If the White Sox or the Bulls, or the Bears for that matter, win a championship in the midst of everybody being negative, do you know how many so-called fans would come out of the woodwork? Yes, I've always said on the show I am a fan of 3 teams in the NFL: the Colts, the 49ers, and the Bears. I've never shied away from the Chicago Bears, ever. Okay? And people want to criticize me for saying, oh, you can only have one team. That's bullshit. Yes, I was a 49er fan, but it was because of the legendary Joe Montana. Colts fan because my daughter was born in Indianapolis and my wife is a Colts fan. Okay, so I got to share that fandom. But if there's a third team that I follow religiously, and as long as you've known me, you know this to be true, it's the Chicago Bears.
And how about this thing? I want to get your thoughts on this. For everybody that's on the Patrick Mahomes Hall of Fame bandwagon already,
pump the brakes. I'll stop you.
Hear me out real quick. Is Patrick Mahomes right now if he got drafted with John Fox as his head coach?
I'd say no.
Thank you.
I'd say no.
You told me that Tremaine McBride and Dontrell Inman and Tanner Gentry was going to make Patrick Mahomes who he is right now?
No, not a chance.
And by the way, if Patrick Mahomes is the second coming to Joe Montana, John Fox would still be the coach of the Bears.
Well, that's it for this Labor Day episode. Hope you enjoyed it. My thanks to Josh Lopez for coming aboard. Don't forget, on your favorite app, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and others, you can find Snowman Unfiltered. And pay attention, because Snowman in the Morning is lurking nearby. On the next episode, I'll explain why it took so long to get this episode out. Believe me, there's a good reason. Till next time, have a great one. God bless. Remember to make your next move your best move. And always remember, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are not big enough. Dream big, do bigger. I am, my wonderful Dr. K is, and I hope you all are too. Till next time, Snowman out.